Hey everybody, welcome to another one of these little music chats. This week I'm back with Oliver Moore, our composer, to talk about the music in Chapter 1.
Hello everyone.
Hello. We're in the run-up to Chapter 2 being released, so we thought we'd take this moment, like this little bit of downtime whilst we're waiting for the final components for the audio track to be put together. To go over Chapter 1 and maybe see what your thoughts and stuff were on the last lot of music that you composed for us.
Yeah, so I think today we were just gonna do pretty much what we did for episode 0, or chapter 0 rather, and just sort of talk through some of the interesting points in the development of chapter 1. So Paddy's episode. Because obviously Paddy's episode was much different in the way that in comparison to episode 0 in that it was actually an episode. It actually had story in it rather than it being like an exposition for the world. We actually had characters and places and people to sort of incorporate.
Yeah, and also much longer.
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
So I mean, straight off the bat, the biggest difference between Chapter 0 and Chapter 1 would be the fact that it's more than one piece of music.
Yeah, so that's right. Like, because chapter 0 was just the theme, wasn't it? We talked a lot about the different sort of variations we went through for the theme. But this one, I had to sort of start creating sort of motifs and sort of build on what I'd already done for chapter 0. And I think that all started when. So I think the storyboard had probably been done, and I asked Alex, who plays Paddy, for those of you who aren't aware, I asked Alex for like a reference list of things that like he thinks sort of sum up Paddy and would surmise Paddy as a character. And Alex did not disappoint. Alex came back with a whole page and a half of reference material, like music wise. I have multiple YouTube links. I've got the document open up here.
Yeah,
and
he's
there's
nothing but thorough, is he?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like, so I've got like Irish Celtic music, like 3 different versions of that. I've got slower variations of the same Celtic music. I've got like sort of typical Irish songs, Free as the Wind, for example. And then sort of more stuff, he's written a whole load of stuff, that he didn't really need to. And then bless him, good old Alex decided that even though he's not really a musician, he's definitely an artist. He went to this site that I had never heard of called onlinesequencer.net. And on onlinesequencer.net, you can put in MIDI information and make your own little sort of MIDI tracks. And so what he did is he just sort of noodled around with some stuff, and just sort of sent me. Oh, how many have I got here? I've got like seven, 8 different.
7.
Yeah, he was really creative when it came to this process. And then he gives me a whole load of like background and like. Nonsense, like a lot of Irish twiddling basically, and I'm like,
What does that mean?
cool, fantastic, wonderful, I will run with that.
This is probably around about the same time that we as a group were posting our Spotify playlists, right?
Yes.
Which, if you haven't heard of or seen before, the party that you can see in the show at the moment, so Gimgar, Nagar, Ava, Torlin, Rook, Gwing, everybody, Paddy.
You always forget the people who are in the party.
I'm always
I can't help with this.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to start listing them because I always forget someone. But anyway, the party as they are in Chapter 1, you can go to our Spotify, which is the Shriekingwizardco, or you can scroll back through Patreon and you can find both the playlists, and if you're on Patreon, you can find the playlists and a little bit of description and discussion about track choices from written by the players themselves, including Liam.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's something that for episode 1 and episode 2, I tried to draw on, with the characters involved.
Well, I mean, like if Alex hadn't have gone, nuclear with the
yeah.
with the midis that he'd been making for you, then you would have had that as a base anyway.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like getting ahead of myself a little bit, but like episode 2, the main characters that are involved with that one, I didn't really get much of a reference list for that. I actually purely used the Spotify playlist, and it proved to be rather helpful. So it's interesting, really, sort of the different elements that make up a person musically. I think music runs in all of us, and we all sort of we hear it in different ways. It's a really interesting tool. But I'm really keen to play a couple of different variations of Paddy's theme. Paddy's theme in the final episode isn't actually what I wrote. I actually wrote a full theme for Paddy that isn't in the episode, nor is it actually posted anywhere else online. I don't think. But it goes through a couple of different variations. So there's this first one that's very, very sort of bare bones and sort of stripped down, that we'll hear now.
Can I tell you my immediate impression?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please do.
Is back end.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, how did you tell? So I mean, Alex's notes in the document was, so he said melody tune wise, number 3 is probably my favorite, which I think that's the one that's based off of. In the sense that it's one I can imagine a montage to, but having more twiddly note sequences to give it that more Irish adventurer vibe.
I see. I like how that comes out with the Shire.
Yeah, I definitely made that a little bit Lord of the Ringsy. I just enjoyed it. It's just very nice and upbeat and happy, and it gives you that sort of Irish cheer, to listen to. It's not completely fully fledged, obviously. I sent it to Alex, and he sort of and ahed over that one. Really. He was like, I like it, but it's not quite Paddy. Basically. So then we moved on to idea 2, which is very much more like the final theme for Paddy that we'll hear in a second. But here's idea 2. Which in hindsight, really, to me, sounds a bit like Recorder Club.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like somebody did a recorder cover of the theme and then posted it on Instagram,
Yeah, but I sent that to Alex, and he kind of liked it. And I think one of the other things that I really had to dive into when sort of doing the main theme was looking at actual Irish folk bands and what sort of instrumentation they might use. Getting the bare bones idea was just the starting point. And then I sort of collected all the information that I had. I think there were a couple of other sort of different versions that I had, but we sort of whizzed through them very, very quickly. So I don't really have those to hand, unfortunately. But the main theme turned out like this for Paddy. And this, again, like I say, this hasn't been heard anywhere else. So this is pretty cool. Jenny is dancing right now.
Yeah. Just wait for the beat to drop.
So I think we definitely agree that was very much more Paddy. I think it
Also, it feels much more in line with that Irish folk that
Yes.
like the band that
Yes.
you're talking about, like the the fiddle and the drum
Mhm.
though it's not, there's well, I mean, I'm talking out my butt here, but I think there is a specific term for the drum in Irish folk.
Hi everybody. Editing Ollie here. I'm just chipping in to let you know that the drum in question is actually an Irish barond. It's a drum that's usually sort of 35 to 45 centimeters in diameter and has a goat skin head to it. It's used in many percussive ways when playing Irish folk music, and adds quite a timbre and a texture to the songs that they're playing. But enough of me rambling. I'll take you back to ourselves, I guess.
And then like the flute, it's not a flute, it's a recorder, and
I think I actually might have used panpipes in that
mandolin.
one. I
Yeah.
can't quite remember the instrumentation for that. Because I sort of wrote that theme with the intention of using it in the episode, and then I never did, which is a real shame actually. But it meant that I never like finalized it. Again, that's actually still a work in progress version. It's just far more put together than the other drafts that I have of it. And you can still hear that theme in the episode. It's just a little bit more subdued, but I think it works very, very nicely to sort of surmise Paddy as a character and where he's from.
I don't know how much you know about Paddy in general. I don't. So, Paddy is the youngest of three siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously he's got two parents. I mean, I say obviously, that's not necessarily the case, is it? But like, he has two parents, or he did. And that makes me think of, like when we're talking about that folk tradition and a band, that makes me think of them as a family, like this big group of people. They've each chosen an instrument to learn. That makes me think of them in that tradition of folk coming from the home and folk craft coming from the home, like the arts and crafts movement, that's them together playing that.
Yeah, that's how I imagine it in my head too, actually. Like a small family, all knowing a different instrument and all coming together to play a melody. It's lovely.
I like how you describe this family of five as a small family.
Yeah.
Like a family of six.
Well, I don't know. Like I've known bigger families, but overall though, I mean that theme then sort of permeated into this in the final episode. And I think that is a little bit more orchestrated. It's a little bit more grand. It also, the very beginning of that, you actually have the High Hopes theme. Just a little bit of it, just to let the listener know. Oh yeah, no, I'm in the same world. That's the theme, and we're now moving away from the theme and into something new. But I really wanted to ground the start of the episode with what the audience had already heard. And my intention really was to, at some point, hear Paddy's theme as we heard it a second ago. But it never came about. I never really, I never got round to it.
If we had a bigger team of artists to hand and we had more chance to like fully explore Paddy's home life, then definitely that's where that would have gone.
Yes. Yeah. If we had more development with Paddy, we definitely would have heard more of his theme. But because there was so much else that needed to happen, musically speaking, I elected to move it along a little bit quicker, and just sort of incorporate small bits of the theme where I could. The next big challenge is when that I cropped up in this episode is when Paddy decided to leave for the circus.
Yeah, and you hear the Paddy's theme transitions into the circus music, right?
Yeah, so we had the drum beat, and then that then led into.
Be careful, little brother. Have hope.
and so that the end of that little bit really transitions back into Paddy's theme again, just using more of the idea, but the real challenge, and again that there's a little bit more of the circus music a little later on, but the biggest challenge for me in this episode, and I hope you remember this, me going a little bit insane trying to figure out what circus music I could use that wasn't Entry of the Gladiators. For those of you who don't know the tune by name, you will definitely know it by hearing it. It goes right. Everyone knows that circus music, and that is, if you type in, I guarantee, if you type in circus music to Google, to YouTube, to any other kind of search engine, that's what you get. It will be titled circus music or whatever, but to come up with new circus music and to avoid the trope of Entry of the Gladiators is so hard. I really struggled.
I feel like that's a really important thing for you to have done for, I mean, obviously because, Entry of the Gladiators already exists. It's somebody else's piece of music. But Entry of the Gladiators has this sort of connotation that comes with it, right? Because of all of the previous media it has been in. And that connotation is creepy and weird and uncomfortable, and we really wanted to move away from, the beauty of fiction is that you can make whatever you want. And so that we know in the narrative that we have designed that Monroe's Travelling Carnival is not like carnivals and circuses of the real world. I was going to say,
it's not a sideshow. Do you know what I mean?
19th and 20th centuries, but let's be honest, they continue to exist and be a scourge upon the world. In those, it's not a sideshow. It's not, it's not about animal abuse.
No.
So we really wanted to move away from anything that really could indicate that it was that.
And again, I went away just like I did for sort of the Irish folk stuff. I went away and I just looked at instrumentation that you would sort of find in Entry of the Gladiators, in other sort of circus music, and I just sort of drew from that. And I think one of the big things I found was percussion, as it played a nice part, and I really wanted that sort of like big entrance, which is why you have the cymbal splash at the beginning, to really sort of be like, here is the start of the piece, this is us, this is a circus, we're fabulous. Right, that's sort of what I want to encapsulate. And then so the full traveling circus comes back a little bit later and sounds a little like this. So I try to include, it's almost like a brass band
Mm-hmm.
with percussion and woodwind. And halfway through that piece, I try to reflect the line, but the world is ever changing. The faces of the people in the crowd are changing. They're not
Yeah.
as happy as they once were. So I had that tonal shift in the middle to really try and reflect that as best I could. The circus is still going on. But the music is really reflecting the audience and the world around it.
Mm-hmm.
So I gave it a more of a minor sound while keeping it as upbeat as I possibly could. I'm actually really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm really pleased with how I managed to sort of overcome that challenge.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the second half sounds and feels to me like a performative smile.
Yes, definitely, most definitely.
And also the timpani in there at the end is,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, and you can sort of imagine them being there on the circus floor or something, like,
Mm-hmm.
the instruments being there, the players being there. Like, I had that image in my mind. And then we move on,
And we transition into
and then we transition into to death.
the burning of Bay Hollow.
Yeah, that's right. So I was very much, as I was writing this, indirectly influenced by the events of Avengers Infinity War. Spoilers for those of you who haven't seen Infinity War. I can't imagine you haven't at this point. At the end, the snap happens and a lot of people get dusted. And there is this tragically beautiful track at the very, very end of Infinity War where Thanos has actually won, and the heroes that remain are coming to the realization that he actually succeeded. And the track is called Porch. I highly recommend you go and listen to it. It's not very long. It's only about a minute long tops, and it's just this beautiful string sort of quartet, just playing this most somber music, and it really did heavily influence how the Burning of Bay Hollow came out. I mean, you got to remember that for me, the Burning of Bay Hollow was the first emotional music I had written, and I was very particular in my thought process in that I wanted to make the audience upset. This is a sad moment. It's a sad moment for Paddy. It's a sad moment for if you were telling it in a story, anything like that, and you have to feel that as much as humanly possible. And I, at the time, Porch was that sound of dread and loss and hopelessness in the world.
It's a stunning loss, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it? That's Porch. It is the genocidal maniac, sitting down to, admire his handiwork.
Yes.
It is
Truly tragic.
It's like it's the sun rising on a tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what Bay Hollow is.
Yes. So let's listen to some of it now. You have the sort of the build up to where Paddy is walking through Bay Hollow and he's sort of seeing things. He's remembering what it was like to walk through there, and then there's that pause. There's a slight reprieve in the music just before there's that sort of swell, and all of the different elements sort of come together. So you've got violin, viola, cello, double bass, and they all start to speak different lines in the music. They all have something different, and I try to do that. They all they all sort of speak with each other, but I purposely wrote it to be a little bit disorientating because you know, when you get upset and your head is swimming, you don't know which way is up anymore. And I really wanted to sort of try my best to convey that feeling of loss and confusion as to why this happened, who did it, the coming to terms with the fact that you know your family is gone, and again another challenge that I really grasped with both hands as best I could. I'm pleased with how it turned out. I hope plenty of you cried. Basically,
What a nice man you are.
delightful. Yes, I am wonderful at dinner parties. And yeah, I mean that's sort of the last bit of real tragedy in the episode. Thankfully, you know, we sort of then come out of the other side and things get a little bit happier. So we move into
My favourite piece.
Jenny's favorite piece of all time. You've heard it plenty of times. If you've been listening to the podcast, I've used it as the intro and outro of that. And it's what I like to fondly call Errand Boy. And Errand Boy is the music that plays when Paddy's running errands for Rosa. And this music really transformed for me because
Yes, I distinctly remember you really hating this.
Yeah, I did.
You presented me several different options, and you were like, "This one's okay. This one's garbage. I hate this one." And I was like, "Well, I really like the one that you hate," and you were like, "Oh, oh." And then you went away and worked on it again.
I came up with 3, maybe 4 ideas, and I couldn't settle on any of them. The rest of the episode had really been clear cut for me. You know, here's Paddy's theme, here's a bit of the High Hopes theme, here's circus music, here's you know, misery and death. How do I write Postman Pat but without writing Postman Pat? You know, and
Postman pads.
and I had no idea. I hadn't a clue. So
early in the morning, as Bay Hollow's burning.
oh my god, miserable.
Yeah, terrible. I'm so sorry.
Alex, we're so sorry.
I don't know.
So oh damn. So I came up with a couple, and here are a few, and you can hear how wildly different they are just by hearing them. I very much had like a waltz idea in my head, you know, like I guess like he was almost sort of dancing around the different people in the town, as it were, you know, like I still wanted, I think I wanted to try and encapsulate that sort of happiness again. Bay Hollow was so miserable that I really wanted something a little bit more cheery.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit the tone, does
no,
it?
in hindsight,
a little bit too upbeat.
in hindsight, I do now realize that. Yes, at the time, I was very determined to have something be this be more happy and more cheery, because I just wanted to pull you back up and be like, come on, okay, it's okay, everything's not terrible.
Yeah, and I completely understand that instinct, like. But it is not the case, is it?
No.
Like,
things are still difficult.
Things are still hard. And also, you know, Paddy is, at this point in time, doing, well, you know, errands. He's not, like, undertaking dangerous work, but he's still undertaking work for which the larger cause is perilous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's the second one. there's a little bit more of that, but you get the
Yeah.
tone from that immediately. It's very somber.
Yes,
It's
it is
far
very,
more
very
somber
somber.
than what it needs to be.
Hmm.
Interestingly, I actually kept the beginning of that. If you
Yeah.
when he enters the town, we still have that bom bom ba da dum bom bom.
Which is a good point actually, because we're talking sort of here about how one's happy, one's sad, if
Mm-hmm.
in sort of layman's terms, and that's true, and we definitely want to lean towards the somber aspect. But also, this is the first time that the audience is going to see Kadar,
Yeah.
which is a major place, right? It
Mm-hmm.
is. I was going to say it's not a capital; it's its own. It's a city state, but it is where High Hopes, respectively make their home. Um, and so we both need to introduce Kadar as, not necessarily this miserable place, and, carry on the theme, the emotional theme of the episode.
Yeah, and keep all the motifs quite closely linked to each other where possible. You don't want something completely left field if you can avoid it, especially at this stage in the story, because we're sort of nearly 3/4 of the way through. And there was a draft version of the final theme. I don't have it to hand, unfortunately, but there was a draft version. And it was very basic. It was basically me playing it, but much slower. Because I couldn't quite get I'm not a pianist. I can't play the piano all too well. And so I was sort of like noodling through it, but it was a bit messy. But then we ended up with the final version, which is lovely. In hindsight, now again, I'm rather fond of it, which is why I try and use it in the podcasts and stuff like that. But here's a little bit of it. It's a very relaxing one to listen to. And I like the idea of it sort of speeding up, like Paddy's life suddenly speeding up in a way he didn't expect. And then like as soon as in the episode where you see Paddy talking to Rosa, uh, and her say that he's now part of the resistance. Things sort of take a slight turn. And I think that again, just to try and represent Paddy's confusion a little bit. And then at the very, very end of the track, where you've got that much, much sort of slower, sort of just sort of octave jump, bom, 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 and the person he meets along the way saying, "We have high hopes," and just including a little bit of that high hope theme, blah da dum, yeah da dum, just to that piece really sort of encapsulates everything about the episode. It doesn't have Paddy's theme in it necessarily, but it includes all the feelings that Paddy probably felt throughout the course of the episode. I think it's a very good surmiser for Paddy's journey.
Yeah, I also think it's it's very interesting in terms of the work that he's doing at this point, right? And also his relationship with Rosa, because she has essentially manipulated him into doing stuff for her. I mean, in it, like, I doubt Alex and Paddy would view this as such, because, you know, it's in exchange for information. It's work for work.
Yes.
But, you know, essentially, she has manipulated him into doing this stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you know, that the turn down in the music also sort of represents this change in their relationship.
Yes.
Which used to be like sort of genial, like, oh, you do this for me, I'll do this for you, to, oh no, you're working for me. You know, like she sort of explains the position that he's in.
And he doesn't even know when it happened.
Yeah.
It just sort of happened, you know, suddenly he was into his neck in it. I have grown to like that an awful lot. I'm actually in the process of putting together a whole load of sheet music for some of the tracks over the sort of the few episodes. So if anyone is interested in playing the music, I'm currently writing it out for piano, and hopefully that should be out soon.
Yeah, we'll link places where you can get that when that's available.
Yeah. Like I say, soon-ish. Just need to put some final touches on them. And then that's pretty much it. You know, the episode then ends on a slight variant of the High Hopes theme.
Yep.
It's a little bit more sort of built up. You've got a little bit more. You've still got the main part of the theme, but it just takes a little longer to get there. I try to incorporate some other instruments to sort of like replicate some laughter that the group are experiencing and sort of things like that. But that sort of surmises everything in the episode. I had a really good time doing it. On reflection, I look back at it, and you know, all the music that I'm doing is very evolutionary. Each time I do something, I'm evolving in a new way, and I'm changing something in a new way. I'm very excited for, I said it in the last one, but I'm very excited for episode 2. There's a lot of cool stuff that I got to experiment with in episode 2, or chapter 2 rather, sorry. And I just can't wait for people to hear the next lot of music. Again, it will be available to listen to on YouTube, Spotify. I'll also make it available on SoundCloud. Any and all good distributor of music, I will be sure to put it there. You can also, when it's available, you can purchase it on iTunes. But yeah, so that's sort of it, really.
Would you say that? I mean, I feel like you probably will say. Will you agree with me that we have both you as an individual, as the composer, and then us wizards and you have learnt a lot sort of musically and sound wise in general since chapter 1?
Drastically.
Yes.
I mean, I'm learning every single day. I always strive to one up myself, basically. The next thing has got to be that next step up, even if the work isn't necessarily like better or more or whatever. Like, I always strive for it to be an improvement in some way, even if it's only small. Even if I find like a small technique along the way that improves the next thing that I do, or helps me in the next thing I do. Everything I do is to improve upon myself and to make as good a final product as I possibly can for people who will take the time to listen, basically.
I, as a side note, am really glad that you're working with us.
Me too. Just as a side note.
I really enjoy your work and stuff. I think chapter 2 is a step up anyway, for like in terms of
all
quality.
aspects.
Yeah, in all aspects. But also I think starting with chapter 2, when that's released, maybe we should do one of these little chats, except for sound effects.
Yeah. Boy, did we do a lot of sound effect work for episode 2. gosh, that was laborious.
It
There was a
was
lot of work
laborious,
involved.
and there was actually a very big heated argument in the middle there, wasn't there?
Boy, was there ever?
Was there ever?
Damn. I was worried for a second.
So maybe we'll do another one of these. We'll do another one of these for chapter 2 anyway, but we'll do one maybe for the sound effects.
Yes.
As a
yes,
separate thing.
I would very much enjoy that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that would be I think doing these music podcasts is very interesting, because for me personally, there is never enough stuff said about the musical process. If you see a film or a show or something like that, you get a little bit tacked on to the end. We got John Williams in, and he's amazing, he is, and I'm like, yes, I know he's John Williams, but I need more insight to this creative process.
I often feel sort of very detached from the musical process in film in general. And I think that maybe part of that is because there's like only 6 composers that Hollywood seems to know.
Yeah, a little bit. Hans Zimmer, Alan Silvestri, John Williams,
Yeah. It is, by the way, if you want to win, if you want an Oscar for something, composing is the best way to win one, because the pool is so small.
Oh yeah, I'm putting my bid in for 2021.
There aren't that many Oscar-winning composers, so logic suggests that you should be able to beat them.
Don't give them ideas.
Where are you at on the internet, Ollie?
I am I'm everywhere. I'm as many places as I possibly can be.
Watching.
So you can follow me on SoundCloud at Mercury Music 4. I think that's actually Mercury Music -4. And then I've got my Instagram, which is at Mercury Ollie. Ollie is spelled with 1 L, not 2, because I'm weird like that.
Oh
lie. And then I am also available on Spotify. I think you can just type in Oliver Moore, actually, and I think you can find me. I think it's quite a straightforward process on Spotify.
Yep, and you can listen to the whole High Hopes Are Roll soundtrack as it is released on Spotify. And if you're looking for a good way to support the show and to support Wizards and to support Oliver and his music, then that is definitely a great way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I just double checked. You can literally type in Oliver Moore, and I am the top result on Spotify.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if that's the case for Apple Music. That might be a little bit lower down. I feel like less people are using Apple Music. Sorry, Apple Music. But definitely find me on Spotify and all the other good places. I think we'll wrap it there, right?
Where all good records are sold.
Where all good records are sold. They're not anymore, but wouldn't it be great to get this music on vinyl? Oh, what an expensive process.
I would also like to maybe one day, if we're ever allowed to gather in groups again, to have like a High Hope show with an orchestra.
Yes, please.
I would love that. That would be great. I think that would just be, like a couple hours of me just crying in the audience, but, worth it.
Yeah. But until that time, stay safe.
Stay safe. Wear a mask.
Everyone.
Stay 2 meters apart and wash your hands. I'm not sure how this turned into this, but here we are. Thanks very much for listening to this, and we'll see you
again very soon
after chapter 2.
Exciting. See you later, everyone.
Bye.